Hello, my friend. What's up? Today I'm interviewing the founder of this device. It's called the Lumen, and you basically breathe in and out of it, and it measures your metabolism. And what that means is it tells you if you're burning carbohydrates for energy right now, or if you're burning fats for energy. Being able to switch between using carbs and fats for energy is really cool. It makes you metabolically flexible, but also you can hack that system, and learning if you're in fat burning mode, you can stay in fat burning mode for longer so you can shred some of that fat off and become a lean, mean machine. So stay tuned. We're going to talk to the founder of this device right now. And also, if you're enjoying this episode, please make sure to click the link below to subscribe to the show so you can get notified the next time we release a new video. Our goal is to help you slow down your aging and look and feel younger. I'll see you inside. Daniel, welcome to the Anti-Aging Hacks Show.
Hey Faraz, thank you for having me.
Hey man, I'm excited to have you because we're going to talk about a really cool device that you've created called the Lumen. But before we dive in, I'd love for you to explain to the listeners a bit of your background and how you got into creating a hardware device, first of all.
Sure, happy to. So yes, my journey with Lumen began with my previous startup company, basically. So I've been in startups and software companies for the past 17 years. This is kind of my trade. This is what I do. Some of my companies succeeded, some of them failed. We were fortunate to sell our previous company. And when I say we, is actually because I'm working with the two phenomenal founders with me all those 17 years. So we were fortunate to sell our previous company. It was a software company, but after selling that company and exiting, I was, the startup life took a toll on me, and I was about 20 pounds overweight. And I just had newborn twins and kind of was supposed to feel successful and in control, but something in my personal life, I couldn't really get hold of my weight, of control over my body. And I started being kind of obsessed about, okay, what's the data here? How can I know what's good for me and what's bad for me? And I started reading. And I was also fortunate to live with a scientist in this domain. So my wife and her twin sister, Michal and Merav, they are the co-founders that actually started this company. So I'm working with, we're 5 founders. I'm working with my wife and her twin sister. And on the one side, and on the other side, I have my co-founders from previous startup companies. So it's it's a family business now.
Yeah.
And the genesis was Michal and Merav's passion around nutrition. So they are both PhDs in basically in cardiology research in the space of physiology. Both of them are Ironman competitors, so they kind of came from extreme sports, and their secret weapon was always being very efficient in fueling themselves into training and into competition. Mm-hmm. And they became kind of top of their game, and top in Israel at least, and Israel is very competitive around these types of sports. And they were obsessed with nutrition. So after their PhD, they went to study nutrition. And in those studies, they realized that there is a lot of knowledge in the basic science that is not translated to people. And there are no tools, and there is no data for nutritionists to really get a sense if what they're applying, their advice, is actually impactful. And one evening I asked them, if you could change something in this domain, what would that be? What can you invent? And being next to me in my startup journey, they started researching and came back with, that was 2014, long ago. And they came back with an idea of, you can measure metabolism today. It's very complex. It takes $30,000 of machinery at best, and 45 minutes to sit down with the hood and breathe continuously, or to a mask, and a physician to look at your data. But potentially this can be done in a handheld device. And very naively, we jumped into this concept with the belief that once there is a feedback loop on nutrition and there is data that is feeding this concept, this can actually evolve, nutrition and diets in a very profound way. And this is what that was the mission, and this is kind of what we're doing till that day. So this is what we're building. We built a small device that connects to your phone, and by analyzing the CO2 content of your breath, we can know if in real time your body is currently using fats or carbs for fuel. And we give you, as a user, we give you a range that you can find yourself within. And the reason it's interesting is because it kind of breaks the paradigm just of calories, and asks a deeper question: what are you fueling yourself? And also you can connect to how do you feel when you're fueling yourself on fats, and how do you feel and how you're performing when you're fueling yourself from carbs. That elevates a discussion and creates a platform for weight loss, but also for longevity potentially, and also for reversal of pre-diabetic or diabetes, and anything nutrition has a compounding effect on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all of those are very solid use cases, especially weight loss, Daniel, as you've probably seen what's going on in the world. We have an obesity epidemic, but even before the obesity epidemic, there's diabetes and there's pre-diabetes and metabolic dysfunction and eating too many carbs and refined carbs and high fructose corn syrup. So all of this goes hand in hand. And you guys are helping consumers understand the impact or what choices they make and how that impacts their metabolism. And I'm sure for most people, the consumers, the layperson, they probably don't even know what metabolism means, but when you break it down and you help to explain why it matters, it elevates the conversation, as you're saying. So I want to go back to something you said with the how you measure, what you're burning, and I believe it's called the respiratory exchange ratio, right?
Sure.
And as you said, you have to go into a lab with machines and put on this thing on your nose and breathe into and out of this apparatus. How did you guys come up with the sensors to figure out the coefficient or the difference in the oxygen versus the carbon dioxide?
Yeah, so I wish I could say it was a spark of genius, but the truth is that it was a trial and error of several years. So our basic assumption was that to measure metabolism, you need to analyze CO2, O2, and flow. Really, the volume of CO2 that you're eliminating, the volume of O2 you're consuming. And our assumption was that now with machine learning, we can find those sensors off the shelf, we can put them together, we can run machine learning and take the 45 minutes it takes and minimize that to a single breath. So I would say we were very naive and very optimistic, and it allowed us to envision that we can succeed, and so we jumped into this. But reality eventually hit us in several ways. So one, there are no sensors available off the shelf that you can just buy in a price that consumers can eventually also purchase, and they are energy efficient, small, and accurate enough. So the sensor element was a major barrier to begin with. Second, all the machine learning concepts we ran trying to simulate the human lung was actually failed. So apparently there is limits to what machine learning can do. And a good example is the weather. You can't really predict the weather in accuracy 7 days from now. Right? 2 days, 3 days, you can. 7 days, the complexity is so big that it's no longer you can't really predict that. And so that is kind of similar with the human lung in a way. So we needed to kind of change paradigm completely. And I became, as an entrepreneur, you need to find what's your problem, what's your main problem, and just do that, especially at early stages. So I became obsessed with sensors. I actually went and found and met with every CO2 sensing manufacturer in the world. So from Hudiksvall in Sweden and from Wuhan in China and Tijuana in Mexico, and Goleta near LA. Really, there are a handful of providers. We met all of them. Eventually, we partnered with one. And in parallel, my co-founders, Michal, Merav, and the team found a different method to measure metabolism. So kind of invented a method that is correlating to the gold standard. And the way we do it is we only measure CO2 content of your breath. We don't need the O2.
Okay.
And we ask the user to sit down. So you need to do that measurement at resting heart rate. And by inhaling a certain volume of air, holding the air in your lungs for 10 seconds, and then exhaling, we manage to get to, let's say, a higher level of signal. Okay, so the moment you hold the breath in your lungs, the CO2 elevates, and when you breathe out, we sample that CO2, and we get, let's say, a visibility to really what's the CO2 content in your blood. CO2 content in your blood is an exhaust of carb metabolism. So higher levels of CO2 will actually represent more carb metabolism in your cells. So this is the gist of the invention.
Okay. So yeah, I've done it obviously a lot of times, and I get a rating from 1 to 5, and usually I get 3, but I've been cutting back on carbs over the months, and I would get 2, and I would get really excited when I had a 2 rating. And I believe it was once I got a 4 or 5. So I was, a bit worried of how many carbs I ate the night before. But if you can explain, the 1 to 5 rating, Daniel, and what that really means to the user. It's super friendly, by the way. But what does 1 mean, and what does 5 mean, and what's the gradient in the middle?
Sure. So our body is not really using fats as a single source of fuel or carbs as a single source of fuel. This is it can happen, but this is a very rare situation. Most of us that are eating, let's say, a complex diet, not a ketogenic diet or completely strict. And so as we eat carbs and fats, our body will transition between those based on our food, based on our metabolic health or metabolic flexibility, and also based on the demand. Right? When you're running and when you're lifting weights, for example, your body can make that transition to use carbs because carbs are more efficient to create energy. And if you need that fight or flight moment, your body should transition to carb. At night, this is a good time for your body to make that transition to fats because you're fasting and because fats are the reserve fuel for you. So there is no high demand. So being on fat burn at night is actually a measurement of health. So 1 for Lumen represents a body that is more inclined to using fat. So most of your energy, those calories that you're burning, are coming from fat burn. 5 would be a point in time that your body is mainly producing energy from carbs. And the spectrum in between is the spectrum in between. So 2 would be mainly fats, but some carbs, and 3 would be half and half. What is healthy? So it really depends on the context. So healthy meaning that you can transition. So that's in general. But morning time at fasting, you can expect most of the time that your body should be in mainly fat burn. Especially if you're on a weight loss journey, that is the time that you should expect to be on ones in a way. After a workout, depending on the workout intensity, you can expect 5s or 4s, or sometimes you can expect 1 and 2. It really depends on what the workout was and where it took you. After a meal, a high carb meal, after about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, you should expect to see that spike of insulin, and therefore carbs or sugar is going into your cell, and a healthy body should be using that sugar, right? So you should see a transition more to carb burn. And by calculating those moments in time, Lumen over a period of today, 2 weeks, and soon it's going to be earlier, but Lumen gives you a metabolic flexibility score, which is really what is your nutritional fitness in a sense. If you can think about the scale of being in shape and out of shape, it really applies the same on nutrition. So people who are diabetic on the one side of the axis, their body and hormones are not really responding well to the food that they're consuming. right? And if you have athletes on the other side of the spectrum, they're so efficient in utilizing different types of fuel that for them it's even harder to gain weight sometimes, and they are super efficient in that axis, and we all live on that axis, right? No one really wakes up diabetic. I'm talking about type 2.
Right.
And of course, and so as this is a self-inflicted condition, you trail into it. And Lumen's mission is to show you that axis and gradually push you towards the healthier side of this axis.
Yeah, that's great. The CDC is now running campaigns to help people recognize that they may be at risk for pre-diabetes. In fact, they're saying in the United States that 1 out of 3 people could be pre-diabetic, which means either you, your boss, or your boss's boss, one of those 3 are pre-diabetic, and they probably don't know about it. Or
Right.
the 2 best friends you grew up with, one of you is probably pre-diabetic, even if you don't know about it, right? So it's getting crazy. And so to learn this as early as possible and understand your body, I think kudos to what you guys are doing. And I want to touch on metabolic flexibility. In the past, this used to be important because, we didn't live in times where we had food abundance our entire human existence. And so there were times when we would go into the winter and it was freezing and there was no food to be found. So our bodies would then be required to convert to burning fat, and we had tons of fat in our bodies, or at least, a decent amount. And so we could burn that to survive the winters, so to speak. Now it's important because we're just living in carb-riddled societies. We're eating carbs all day long, which means our bodies are now just overprimed to burn carbs, and they forget about burning fat. And the reason we need to burn fat these days, even though we don't have food scarcity, is that you want to lose some weight. Well, that's stored in your adipocyte cells and your fat cells. So you have to burn those off to lose the weight and get those cells to be skinnier as opposed to fatter fat cells. So is that what you see? Was that, I know that it's also athletes because your wife and her twin sister are athletic. So was there a use case behind fat loss early on in this, Daniel?
It's a great question. We always looked at what is the market, and also kind of from a vision perspective, what type of company are we building? Mm-hmm. And on the one hand, if we look at weight loss companies out there, we never felt that we are actually building a weight loss company, because weight loss usually is connected to fat diets. Usually it's temporary. Usually people are yo-yo dieting. And for us, it's a health company or a metabolic health company. But as you said, no one is actually looking for how can I become metabolically healthier, right? This is like a more advanced notion, which kind of we're trying to promote and to elevate. So the hook for us is weight loss, because this is the moment that people start to care, and this is how they frame good results. And they're actually right. So losing weight for most people that are in a higher BMI, yes, it's healthy. It's probably a nudge in the right direction. So for us, that's the market we're targeting, and that's the conversation starter, if you may. So that's but as you go on with Lumen, what we try to teach and promote is you are working in your lifestyle, and your lifestyle is holistic. It's about sleep and about nutrition, which is about 70%, and activity and workouts and fasting and all these things, and stress. All these things are connected, and all these things are the things that are in your control and you can work on. Working on those will build your metabolic flexibility. So you can start seeing that connection. And higher metabolic flexibility score will make sure that you not only reach your weight goal, but actually be able to maintain it. So people who are metabolically flexible will be the ones that actually can physiologically build a sustainable change, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. And to your point, I think, the biohacker movement is when you say, hey, this device helps you to become more metabolically flexible, they're like, where can I get it now? But like you said, the bigger market, of course, is people trying to optimize their weight and understanding what their body is doing. because they have no idea what they've been doing, like, their body's been doing for the last so many years. Now, let's touch on weight. So one of the things that I use typically to make sure that I don't gain weight or I keep my weight low is even before Lumen, I would sleep. I would not eat carbs at night very much. And then when I would wake up, I would try to do 20-minute light exercise or workout in the morning before eating anything. And my rationale behind that is that all of the carbohydrates that we eat are stored in the muscles or they're stored in the liver, and that provides the energy for our day-to-day activities. But if I can wake up in the morning after being fasted all night and drain them out, then there's very little carbohydrates left. And so my body has to then at some point switch to fats because there's no more energy left. And so I would do that. I still do that quite a bit. Is that a strategy that you approve of? And if so, what would you see if people did exercise, a fasted exercise? How would you see the Lumen tracking their burn, if you will?
So first, yes, that's a strategy I would recommend, but I would say that this is such a personal journey for people, and I can very easily contradict that and say that what you're practicing was my routine as well. So I wouldn't eat breakfast at all. I would skip that. Okay, and I would work out on an empty stomach. And by the way, I still do. And I do weightlifting in the morning, and it's kind of HIIT, and I try to push myself for being fat adapted, and also like in high intensity and high energy while at it. So I think it's good because it presses your body to utilize fats in a more extreme condition, not only sleep and sedentary mode, which is the body is inclined to do. So I like it. But what I learned for about myself as well is that if I don't take carbs in the morning, I'm about 40 to 50% more likely to eat also late at night. Okay, so now the question is no longer just a scientific question. You can't just take if you ask a scientist, he will tell you, yes, that's good. But if you look at from a system perspective, you need to look at everything. And if you realize that skipping breakfast, which is good, it's okay. But if you realize that skipping breakfast causes you to eat late at night, so you need to actually identify what is your breakfast. Like, what is a breakfast that can prevent that late night eating for you? So that the answer is yes and no. You understand? It's really depending on the person and where he is at his nutritional journey.
No, that's fair. Once or twice or a few times, I guess, I've done a hard workout, and after that, I've tested my Lumen scores, and there were more carbs. It showed me more carbs. Was that related to actually carbs being released, or was that a function of the stress in my body?
So usually they're both happening. So it really depends how your body reacts to what type of workout. And yes, when our body is stressed, and workout could be a stressful moment for the body for sure, then it's more reliant on glycogen. And glycogen is basically stored carbs. So even if you haven't eaten anything before the workout and you fasted for several hours before, it's definitely could be the case that your body is storing glycogen, which is healthy, exactly for times like that. So the good side is that you're depleting glycogen stores. And if you will measure, let's say, probably 2 hours after, you can see that drop to, if you haven't eaten anything after that workout, you can see that drop towards fat. So that's probably a momentarily increase towards carbs.
Okay. So let me ask you this, regarding the device. I'm holding it up right now. If an ideal customer of yours wanted to use the device, how would you script the perfect day for them? Like, wake up and do this, then take a walk or eat or do this. Like, what would you say how to use the device?
Oh, that's a great question, because that's part of our next evolution and how we're building Lumen now that we have the data and we see different habits that people are forming around the device. So I would say find that moment in the morning at fasting that you can turn into a ritual, like brushing your teeth. Okay, and some people, and I'm included, Sometimes we don't have that time in the morning, and I will take my first measurement at work, rested at, let's say, at 10 a.m. So, but the most important thing is to be consistent and kind of do it day by day, because there is a huge difference in people that are adopting this as a habit than people that are struggling and trading in and out. So I would say the habit is probably the most important element. So you measure in the day, you get your nutrition plan. I would also test different strategies. So if I'm trying to fast, or I want to try to cut down carbs or cut down food at 8 p.m., so I would measure myself at that point in time. So beginning of fasting, and then the end of fast, either in the morning after or a few hours later, to see what that time period got me to. And something very interesting we started seeing, that fasting is also a great strategy, but like every strategy, it could be taken to the extreme and work against you. So a lot of people that are not fat adapt enough will try to fast for too long of periods of time. And what you see is that the body responds in stress, and your fast is no longer efficient. So actually, it's not the longer you fast, the better. Is the longer you fast and you get your body to still be in fat burn, that's the best case. Because a lot of customers that we see are measuring after a very long, prolonged fast or time-restricted feeding period of time, and see that their body has already transitioned to carb burn because it's stressed because of the over-fasting. So it breaks down muscle, and it breaks down, and it takes glycogen where it's not really needed. So that's another, let's say, routine I would test on myself in that manner. Yeah, I think those are moments. It really depends if you're working out, and correlate how good you feel based on the fueling before working out. And it also really differs from working out in the morning, working out in the afternoon. So kind of finding what the fuel source that makes you optimize at best with your workout routine. That's another application I can see.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about nutrition then. I see that the app gives me recommendations based on my reading for that morning. It says, okay, here's your plan for the day. Have 2 or 3 servings of carbs or more, right? Depending on how you're doing. Are you finding, and I know that nutrition is like a religion, right? People are like, well, I've been doing this for so long. I know exactly how my body is. And especially the more people think they know about nutrition, the more hard they are in their assessment of what is right and what is wrong for them. But I guess this concept applies to the general population too, who seem to think that they're doing okay with nutrition for the most part. Do you see resistance with people adopting the nutritional guidelines that Lumen recommends, or are there a lot of people that are saying, okay, I'll eat 2 servings of carbs?
Yeah, the answer is both, and we're responding to that as well. Like, definitely when you try to push people to new habits, and people that already believe in what they do, they have philosophy, especially early adopters that are using Lumen. Probably it's not their first diet or first nutritional intervention that they've done. They probably succeeded with some things, but still they want to learn more and get let's say better impact and better understanding of the things they're doing. So yes, there is some resistance to making changes, and Lumen is adopting to that in the way we look at the evolution of the nutrition plan, what we provide today. But you also see on the other side of the spectrum, people that are willing to commit and taking a chance on something that is right now at the current version not very easy to apply, because your nutrition plan can change dynamically based on what you're measuring, and so it's hard for time to time to plan ahead. Right, I'm very open about the challenges our community is having with Lumen at the moment, because I'm also very confident that we know and address those. So the answer is yes. That's the people who commit succeed, and it's working for them. And those people who are finding it hard, they should just hold on for a few months, and something new will come that will make their experience extremely smoother.
Okay. Well, Daniel's going to release a new version of the app, and he may or may not want to talk about it some more. But before we get to that, Daniel, the other questions I had is that it's fairly easy to do it in the morning. You wake up, you shower, you brush your teeth, and then you can do your lumen, drink some water, do your lumen. What I did notice is that I wear trackers on my arm, and I wear rings and all kinds of things, and chest straps in the morning as well. And so what I noticed that when I wake up, my heart rate's really, really low, like 52, 53, which is good. But by the time it's 10 a.m. or 10:30, it's at over 60 at that point. Does that have any, and I know the point you made about being consistent with doing this every day. Is there a difference between doing it when your heart rate's 52 versus 65 at 10 a.m.?
Yeah, it's a good question. There shouldn't be that of an impact. Mm-hmm. Actually, what we look from the data and the factors that are more impactful, there is a phenomena called morning dawn effect, which is the body prepares itself basically to kind of wake up the organs, and there is a rush of sugar or carbs in ways that is secreted kind of to wake up the inner organs. So sometimes even if you're doing everything right, you could wake up on a 4 and you slept well, and it's not about stress, and it's not about overconsumption of carbs or calories. Everything should be good, and you still wake up high. And in those moments, we encourage people to just drink water, and if they can, wait for like 30 more minutes and take another measurement, because it could be that what you're measuring is very momentarily, right, and not actually a good feedback loop on the previous day. So for us, it's also trying to identify these points and help reflect them and kind of reassure people that it's natural what they're seeing.
Right. The circadian rhythm is what you have to account for, and it's different for people, right?
Right.
So awesome. Well, there's a lot you're taking in and trying to synthesize. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. In terms of fasting, you made a comment, Daniel, earlier with inefficient fasting. And there's lots of people now that are starting to fast more and more. And I am about to embark on a 5-day fast, which I've done a couple times before, but it's the Walter Longo, the reduced calorie, it's not zero carb or zero calorie diet. And so is there a better way to do a fast that you recommend to people, or are you staying away from any fasting guidelines right now?
Well, I think very similar to metabolic flexibility, which is talking about the transition of two extremes. And you can look at that also from exposure to cold temperature and warm temperature. You can look at that from day and night. So anything that pushes the body to extreme, and fasting is one of those extreme, our body is built for those extreme. And in a way, if we think about longevity, the aging of cells is their inadaptability in a sense to changing circumstances, and food is a changing circumstance. So anyway, so the moment I have food in my body and I can hormones response, that's a changing environment as well. So we do encourage fasting. We think it's a great tool, and I would be also frank about what we still don't know. We haven't tested 5 days of fast or like prolonged fasting periods with Lumen. So I would actually be very interested to hear your thoughts and what you're seeing on the device and how it changes. Because that's something we haven't tested for yet. And that's interesting. So I would advise is for people is kind of there is a learning curve for the body in a way, and I wouldn't start with a 5 days fast if I don't do shorter periods of time. If I can go very easily with a day of water fast. So I think you should train your body towards that and not try to be, it should be comfortable to a certain level.
Yeah.
And that's something I would encourage people to kind of ease their way into these concepts and not rush themselves, because they're good and you want to adopt them as habits, as a periodical habit.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I've done these before. That's why I'm more comfortable. But it's important to just kind of ease in and not just prepare for the zombie apocalypse like right
Yeah.
away, right? That'll come. So the other thing I like about your app is it's super user friendly. You've added different sections for people to learn about what fats are, what they mean, what carbs are, what slow release carbs are, what fast release carbs are, and examples of carbs that you can eat that may count or don't count because they have fiber in them as well. So it's good education as well. So people that are using the app, I think there's more to just taking your measurement. You can browse around and learn a bit more about your body and the types of foods that your body needs and what they do once they're inside your body. And I use this like I use a lot of biohacking devices or wearables. It's at the end of the day, they're here to educate you and change your long-term behavior, right? That
Right.
small 10% change in long-term behavior is going to have way more of an impact than you trying to like get on a ketogenic diet and failing after 2 months or 6 weeks
Yeah.
or whatever it is. So that's the key, and it's important to kind of use it consistently for a while so you can get the learnings and have the behavioral changes so you understand what your body is actually doing, which is the cool part about this. So with that said, what is next for you? Are you able to talk about where you're changing or how many months out it is?
Yeah, I can talk about it. I want to actually respond to what you're raising, because that's probably the biggest opportunity of data entering nutrition. So what I see in what you're saying is that the problem with diets is that when they are marketing led in a way. They have 5 rules, very simple things, and extreme, right? There is always an evil macro, right? Carbs are evil, fats are evil. There are things that you should do and things that you should absolutely never do. And the reason diets are structured that way is because they, like viruses in a way, they are meant to be viral. They need to have quick results very fast because people don't have patience, and they need to be shareable. So I can tell you that diet in like 5 sentences and what it did to me. So this is why diets are continuously created that, and they're pushing us to the extremes. The opportunity that I see in Lumen and devices like Lumen and the let's say the ability to see data, personalized data on things that you're doing, is that for the first time we can start selling balance. Like we can selling personal balance and what is right for you. And Lumen doesn't try to take your carbs away. It's actually motivated to find the point that you can eat the most carbs within your health and still become healthier and still, and still lose weight or still maintain weight. Really depends on the journey you took. And we don't need to be bound by constraints of being viral, right? And so that's what data will make diets. Fat diets will disappear in a way because it's personalized. So it's really, I don't care what you're doing as a person, because what you're doing is not right for me, because I'm at a different phase in my nutritional literacy, and I'm in a different phase in my habits, and I don't have access to sweet green like you do, right? So it doesn't matter what is true. What it matters is what's true to me and what's true to me now. And the context is important. So I think that's the opportunity. And this is tied to your question. This is what we're building. We're basically building a tool that eventually will personalize a journey for you, and it will take your goal, and be it weight loss or metabolic health or reversing prediabetes, and building a journey that is tailored to you. And that journey is comprised of skills that you will learn and you can kind of test along the way. And it comprises of points of metabolic assessment where you can see your body is changing metabolically. And it comprised of some behavioral change things that are equally as important in making, programming ourselves into better habits. So kind of in 30,000 feet, this is what we're building. And it's very exciting because the community is feeding us in those changes. So every feature we're thinking of, every new integration that we take into account, all of them are being tested with customers. All of them are being designed, and before we really program and write the code for them, we actually get feedback. So we have conviction that this is going to be impactful on people's, and it's going to be a crucial part of their journey.
Right. And that's the way it should be. That's how smart people do it. So when people have, and this is the last question on the device, and then we'll move on to where people can find you. But when people have questions, when they see, their carb levels higher than they expect it to be, or their fat levels higher, meaning burning more fat, where can they go to find some of these answers? Is there a community around the internet that they can go hang out in and get their questions answered?
Yes. So there is it's a closed community, but if you have a device, of course, we allow you to sign into it. We have an extremely engaged community of thousands of people. Every question is immediately answered by 40 different people. Really, we were blown by the engagement and the level of knowledge and the level of willingness to share people's personal success and struggles with the device and with the app and the system we're building. And so that's one aspect. There is, we take a lot of pride in our internal team of nutritionists and customer success people that are answering any question. So through the app, you can actually get into a human being that will answer you usually very fast. With questions around nutrition, around the device, around the science. If you have conflicts in the metric, and as we go, we try to productize all those processes and get them into the product. So you don't need to ask a question and get an answer from someone. But I think those are the sources. So you can expect the product. You can tap into the community, and you can ask our own representatives if you want.
Okay, well, really cool. I like what you're doing, Daniel, and your team. A lot of family there. I hope it's a happy family. Right, happy family. But yeah, it's you're not selling a diet. You're not selling this new thing that's going to change your weight overnight. But this is more of a device that helps you give feedback. It changes you behaviorally and gives you good habits for a lifetime. So thanks for doing what you do. Where can people find the device and yourself if they want to go buy one?
So sure. So basically, we sell it online. You can buy it through our website. It's www.lumen.me. And you'll find us on social, Instagram, and so forth. And I'm on LinkedIn, basically. So you can find me there, Daniel Talmor, CEO, one of the founders here. And I'm super happy for this call and for this podcast. Excited to continue and hearing feedback from you and your audience, and happy to be here.
All right. Thank you so much, Daniel. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Likewise. Thank you for having me, Faraz.